What is up, everybody? Keith, go by Gator Guy 231 across the DFS industry, and here to break down another week of college football. Really enjoying doing these videos. Had some great feedback after last video, going in a little more detail. So hope you all enjoyed, and thank you for coming back and watching another episode. If you have already hit subscribe, thank you, thank you, thank you. FSI is over 800 subscribers on our goal to 1,000. If you have not and enjoy some of the content, please hit that bottom right subscribe button. You have no idea how much it helps. And we have a goal of getting 1,000 by the end of the year. And hell, if we could get to it by the end of November or October, be that much better. So thank you again. Without any more BS from me, let's jump into the picks. Now, I think this week, just like a lot of other weeks in college football, is really going to just test your resolve to really focus on the plays and the games that can shoot out. Like, talked about it before. It was actually really was awesome. One of our longtime subscribers, really high stakes player, wanted to get into college football DFS and was messaging me earlier this week and just asking about the process. And what I told him, I really try my best with how huge these slates are. You've got to kind of cross off games. And maybe just try to like have the one guy that is either a misprice or something like that in your pool. But when you're really talking about cash and optimal buildings, you got to just start looking at these totals and going, which of these games could end up being 60 to 50, 50 to 45, and like focus on your exposure there. Let that help make some of these like coin flip decisions. And when you see, South Carolina and Vandy at a 41 total, and we have another game at 74, like let's be real about where we need to shift our focus. Yeah, Shee Smith is going to be a great play from South Carolina. He's going to be every single week. His target share is immense. But, do I want to prioritize him, or do I want to make sure that I have room for Sam Ehlinger and that I can run it back with somebody from Oklahoma or things like that? So, that's the process I use. I know it's been incredibly successful the last, year and a half that I've been covering, been the main coverable person for FSI. It's been a hell of a start to this season, so it's a process I'm going to stick with. All right, let's jump into the plays. So Zach Wilson's at the top of the board. Look, I love the player. He's jumping up draft boards, but that is a 35-point spread. There's a really good chance, and BYU has two really good running backs to feed, so I do worry about him potentially going up 21-28-0. How much more passing he's going to do? Is he going to even see too much of the second half? So I think that, especially at 9,500, if it was like 8,000, I would still be teetering. 9,500, I think is too much. But Sam Ehlinger is going to be, I think, the most likely top play on the slate, or one of the highest owned plays on the slate, and for good reason. Not only are you getting huge passing volume, but you get a ton of rushing equity as well. Also, it doesn't take a lot of sacks. So, one thing we have to keep in mind in college football is we do lose points on sacks, unlike the NFL, because those rushing yards are counted. So a quarterback that doesn't take sacks and then gives us running upside is huge to have in our lineups. Sam Ehlinger, and the top total game, first click in my lineups. I think that's the guy that you're going to build around. And there's going to be so much value at the wide receiver position. It's going to be easy to get there. Now, I think Spencer Rattler is a great way to run it back. It's just that at 8,900, you're going to push your salary cap, especially with how crappy the running back position is. I would say this. If you're going to play BREECE Hall, I don't know if you can get to Rattler. If you're going to play Sam Ehlinger, if you decide that I have other ways to fill my two running backs without BREECE Hall, then you can probably easily get to Spencer Rattler and just game stack the shit out of this game. I think it makes a ton of sense. Obviously, we know that Oklahoma's offense has always produced top quarterback DFS finishes. Their running game has actually been struggle, so I think that Rattler makes a ton of sense. Kyle Trask, my Gators, guys, this offense looks unbelievable. And one of the craziest things about the Gators for me right now is there's like two dependable DFS targets. Kyle Trask obviously is getting massive volume. Dan Mullen, has always been a guy that does a lot of running. And this season, he's really emphasizing the pass. And Trask looks amazing. 10 touchdowns and 1 interception to the first two. Against South Carolina, they got up really big in the second half. Like, the game looks a little closer than it was. But he had kind of abandoned the pass at that point, or Trask would have had 40-plus passing tips again. But here's the issue with the Gators. You can only go two places, Trask and Kyle Pitts. I guess KADARIUS TONEY, especially since he's running back eligible. But other than that, they spread the wealth so much. that's really hard to hone in. You can't like play. I don't think you can play a lot of the other wide receivers. I just think that you're potentially always bringing like a 1 to 2 catch play, and the running backs can get phased out. I always like Malik Davis. I think he's ready to break out. But, you know, probably more of a showdown play than anything else. All right. After those top three, I think we're going to – personally, I'm going to kind of go down. I'm just going to skip this mid-tier. I think Max Duggan and Brock Purdy are both fine. I think Purdy is kind of overdue for a breakout at this point. And Max Duggan gives you a good rushing upside. But I don't love Max Duggan's matchup. And then Brock Purdy, you know, I guess I just have some fear by his performance. Like that's the wrong way to take it in GPP. But there's some guys below him I really like. So we're going to jump there. Sam Howell is one of the things I want to start out with. So beginning of the season, one of the most expensive quarterbacks in college football DFS, slow start, still has awesome weapons. North Carolina is a top 10 team in the nation. This is a sneaky shootout game. Could easily see this end up being like 42-35 and not having a ton of ownership. So I think Sam Howell, again, if you just kind of go back to like, look at even the analysis, 38 touchdowns and 3,600 yards last year. Like he's due for positive. I never know if it's progression. I don't think it's regression, but positive shift to the mean outcomes. I feel like both of these first two games he's underperformed those. So I think I like that as a GPP play. Kellen Mond too. UF's defense hasn't looked great. I mean, I can't do it, right? I can't play Kellen Mond versus my guys, but he's due to you know, potentially have a big game. The other play I really want to highlight, and again, even, you know, above him, Pickett I think is playable. Burmeister, be careful on the Virginia Tech side. I've seen reports of Hooker coming back and potentially having a split. Like to me, that just you cannot, pardon my French, but you cannot fuck up your quarterback position or your super flex position. Like optimal builds has two QBs. You have one at, you know, obviously your top stop, and you have your super flex. You cannot fuck those up or you are screwed. Like it's really hard to overcome. So you got to get them right. And that's where I really like Armstrong for Virginia. And here's the big reason. Not only are we getting great passing volume, right? 43 and 45 attempts in the first two games, but rushing equity is so crucial, especially when you're sub 7K. Plus, this game has a chance to shoot out, guys. Like, make sure I get my total. Sorry. I think it's like close to 60. Let me just sort by ACC. Sorry. That just shows how professional my show is, right? Yeah, it's 58.5. So you got a solid total. NC State doesn't play great defense. Pickett just carved him up last week, had a nice game. I think Armstrong has a really good chance to potentially get you a 100-yard bonus too. So, or at least, you know, rush one in. So I think that there's a good chance. I really like that at 6,800. Outside of that, Bo Nix is interesting for GPP just because of his rushing upside, but, you know, I think I'll wait. Leary on the other side was finally named full-time starter, 28 for 44. The only thing I don't love about Leary is not bringing a lot of rushing upside. But again, if you want to save a little bit in a good game environment, that's fine. And then the final pick, who I do think will catch some steam, but I do worry about the matchup, is Phil Jurkovich from Boston College. Easy stack with Long, who he's just locked onto, but 38, 56 attempts in the last two. Again, Pitt has a good defense, but, you know, we've seen them be susceptible. So I think he's in play, especially at 6K. And anybody blind here, I will never roster Felipe Franks, even the best matchup. Do not like that guy. He shushed the crowd at UF when he was the starting quarterback. You do not do that to your home fans. He's lost me ever since then, even when he was their starter. So we'll never be talking up Felipe Franks on this show. And then I think some people might be drawn to Frank Harris versus BYU, but that spread is just too scary for me. I can't, like, again, you cannot fuck up quarterback. Like, you cannot screw it up. So I think that, you know, the likelihood of EHLINGER or plus Armstrong or somewhere in that range, maybe even like a Howell for GPP is probably where I'm going to go. All right, running back, top play on the slate, BREECE Hall. Great matchup versus Texas Tech. It was phenomenal in the season. It's been phenomenal to start the season. For me, this is just clicked because running back to me is really, really dark. I'm not a huge fan of Herbert. I think that there's going to be game log watchers on him, but it is a split. And, you know, for $8,100, you've got to get it right. And I just, you know, you could totally see like a 15 carries for 95 yards, and that's a good game, right? But it's going to wreck your lineup. So I don't think I can spend up there. Vaughn is kind of a similar shape as Herbert. You're not getting huge volume. You've got some huge logs in here. Obviously, he's quite explosive. I haven't watched him play. So obviously, he seems like he's pretty explosive, but not a great matchup versus TCU, who we saw stifle Texas for much of the game last time. Zamir White. So here's the thing. I saw Cook looks like he might be playing, and Georgia versus Tennessee is not predicted to shoot out. So again, don't think I'm spinning up there. Thompson, probably fine. So let me kind of like jump down so I don't make this too long, to the guys I'm kind of targeting. First off, I think that is very, very viable to roster KADARIUS Toney from UF. So again, if you remember last week, I let you all know my brother-in-law's nickname for him is Ankle Breaker. Because if you ever watch him, you'll understand. He loves to go backward, sideways, like loves the juke move. He would be mashing that button on the PlayStation to spin and juke and all those things. But this year he's looked awesome. They're getting him involved in carrying, but his main role is out of the slot, where he's getting 6 to 7 targets. And once he's in the open field, he's just a blur. Honestly, you're surprised somebody like if somebody's one-on-one, I give them like a 5% chance of making the tackle. He's that elusive. And again, Texas A&M defensively hasn't looked great. Running back's really, really tough. So potentially getting 5-6 catches. I'm going to talk about that with another guy here coming up. But the explosiveness of Toney, I think, makes him in play. I think the BYU guys are really interesting. Katoa and Algier. Here's the thing. It's a timeshare, right? 11, 11, 10, a few catches. And then Algier, from what I read, is a little bit more the explosive guy. But again, this is a complete timeshare, but they are predicted to win big, right? 5 touchdown favorite. So potentially looking at one of those guys or running one with each, that type of thing I think is in play, but probably more GPP because of the timeshare. Carter, for me, is the better of the two running backs for North Carolina. Williams is priced higher. But again, timeshare. Once again, I'm paying money for timeshare. Not cool. One thing I want to watch is the status of Auburn closer to kick. If Shivers were to miss, BIGSBY was a great asset out of the backfield last week. I'm only at 8 carries, but did get 7 catches. He's right at that price point where that makes a lot of sense. McGowan has looked really good, but again, timeshare. Pledger. So again, it's tougher. At least I'm a little bit cheaper. Ingram, the same way. I wanted to start and roster Ingram, and then looking more and more at the snap count, it's like, God, Texas is rotating so many guys. So where I think I may end up going is down here for Austin Stogner from Oklahoma, playing a lot of tight end. He's not a running back. I don't know why they are classifying him this way, but in the last 2 games, 10 catches, has not gotten into the end zone yet, but for $4,500 to get like 6-7 targets in the shootout, get one of the pass catchers, I think makes a lot of sense. You could also, let's see, one more guy I wanted to bring up down here. Malik Davis. So again, this is a homer pick. I think I brought him up every single time. He is overdue for a breakout. They're using him a lot of third down situations. He's also getting carries. He is an explosive player. He's going to break a big one here soon. At 3,600, I'm definitely going to be looking at him in GPPs, maybe not cash. All right, let's finish this out with some wide receivers. Again, I'm not going to go too much on the BYU guys. Certainly in play, huge favorite. But again, are we going to get second half work? Like, what is that going to look like? So I think Shee Smith is truly probably the top overall wide receiver play. So give me a second to try down some coffee real quick. But his target share, I think I read it's like 44%. It's insane. After watching the game, so many of these catches are easy too. They're just little bubble screens, little drag routes. He does go deep a little bit, but they're just, trying to get the ball to him as much as they can. So it's huge volume. It's a sucky game environment, but, if he finishes with any less than 8 catches, I think he'd be shocked. So, really you're going in with close to a 20 catch or 20-point floor because of that. So I do think he's the top guy. You may or may not find yourself with the ability to spend up though. Kyle Pitts, obviously, he is due for TD regression at this point. Played in week 1, which was great because his price is only $5,400, which is a mistake. Last week at $7,300, I thought it was a mistake to play him at that price. We only saw 4 catches, but in the end zone, Trask is definitely staring him down. Why wouldn't you when you watch Kyle Pitts? He's a beast. But again, you're really going to need touchdowns for him to make value. So I'm not a huge fan of that. I think he's more GPP. Rambo's the perfect environment. I like these guys at the top, but honestly, I'm looking at sub 6K. I think that the wide receiver pool is loaded. Mims, I've seen some stuff with the snap count. It's a really thin. It's a tough play, guys. You better get a touchdown or a big play from Mims, or you're going to be hurting. So I think that price, that's a fade. One of the other big injury statuses we want to watch is Addison of Pitt, because if he is not in, probably one of my favorite plays on the slate. Maybe even if Addison's in and limited, but is Taysir Mack from Pittsburgh. He was the number one wide receiver coming in the season. Was injured for the first week when Addison came on the scene, but last week back to normal, 6 for 76. Really, really good player. 5,300 is a bit of a steal to me. So I think that's going to be close to a lock play for me. But anyhow, let's go to the top. And just kind of want to talk a couple plays. First off, one of my under the radar plays, George Pickens came in, considered one of the best wide receivers in the SEC. Slow start to the season, but that's because Georgia's quarterback situation has been an absolute joke. Looks like it's finally starting to stabilize. It's not a great matchup for Tennessee. I think Tennessee's quite good, but he has scored both weeks. 5,500 for a guy, start the season was at 6,400. To end the season was closer to 7K. So I think it's interesting. I don't know if I'm going to get there, but it's somebody I want to bring up, especially with his teammate Jackson probably getting more ownership and Pickens being the superior talent. Don't know how to say this, DYAMI Brown, but is definitely shown to overcome Newsome for the number one wide receiver for North Carolina. 10 catches to start the season. He's a huge big play guy. If you go back to last season, huge big plays. Again, this is a sneaky shootout. These guys, I think for Syracuse, I want to say he was 7,200 is a short slate. North Carolina was expected to do huge things in the passing game. It hasn't gone that way so far, but they're due to break out. Could also go for his teammate Newsome, 5,400. Terrible start to the season, but again, no ownership because of his game logs, and we know, after what he did last year, he has huge upside. One of the guys that I really am excited to play is Jake Smith, especially if Moore, is I think Moore's set to play. But, if we find out there's any limitations, Sam Ehlinger absolutely loves Jake Smith, got him back, immediately started targeting the hell out of him, 6 for 49 last week, in a tough game versus TCU where they weren't completing many passes. Going to find things much easier, runs out of that slot. We saw this slot. Who was it? Devarnway. I can't say his name right. Sorry, guys. If you watch my soccer videos, pronunciation is a difficult thing for me. But Jake Smith, could easily end this game 10 for 80 and a touchdown. So I think Jake Smith's price is pretty awesome, and we know that Sam Ehlinger loves his slot guys. Going down, Emezi, good play again. A game that I like that has sneaky shootout in it. But where I kind of want to target next is these Texas Tech wide receivers. So because they had priced down Carter, who I highlighted and said was a lock the last two slates and mashed each time, now they overcompensated, and the other two are Vasher and EZUKANMA have now are both below 5K when they were both the upper sixes for the last 2 years. So love ERIK here. I'm not going to try to say his last name again, but 4,900. 4.75 catches. I think that's comical. I think that you definitely want either him or Vasher. Where's Vasher? Or TJ Vasher in your lineups. I just think that there's too much upside on both. Whether Alex Bowman's playing or not, Texas Tech is going to pass. That's just what they do. I did leave out one guy I wanted to bring up. Sorry. Hunter Long has been insane. 7, 9, and 9. He is a tight end, but again, with those type of target numbers, don't think of it that way. It's just, somebody that's going to rack up points. There's one or two more down here. Let me just see as they pop up. So one of my guys that I've targeted a lot, BRILEY Moore. Definitely in the end zone too. Skylar Thompson has a lot of trust in him, so I think he's an interesting play, especially if you want to just be a 1 or 2 percenter. But then there's two other guys down here I want to mention. Weidemeyer is actually Texas A&M's top target for Kellen Mond going back to last year. Again, another tight end, but could see him being needed if Texas A&M falls behind. And then staying in the tight position, I think Charlie KOLAR is the number one wide receiver for Iowa State. Even though, again, he is the tight end, started the season with an injury, is projected to be potentially a first or second rounder in the NFL from all I've seen. Texas Tech is great for opposing wide receivers, so I really like that play as well. I'm sure there are some other plays that I meant to mention and missed out on, but we got a lot. I hope that this helps. I know some people asked for late slate last week. Not breaking it down. Honestly, I don't love the slate. I think the main slate is kind of where it's at today. So target that. Good luck. And once again, if you haven't hit the bottom right, hit it now. And thank you so much for watching. Have a great one. See you.